Well, in the pre-Me Too era, the Brittany Higgins saga would have been over before the two central protagonists had shaken off their hangovers. The then Defence Minister, Linda Reynolds, would have summoned the two staffers, Higgins and her colleague, Bruce Lerman, into her office, asked them both what the hell they were doing re-entering Parliament House late one night in March 2019 after being out drinking, and, in the unlikely event that neither of them could offer a reasonable explanation, sack them both on the spot. Had any criminal activity occurred, as was soon alleged, that would have been a matter for the federal police, not the minister, and might have been played out in a court case no more widely reported than any of the other thousands of equally dramatic cases happening across the nation every year. And you and I would be living in a world where the names Higgins and Lerman would be blissfully devoid of the unsavoury connotations with which they are now associated. But Me Too changed all that. The interest you and I have in this story is no longer about whether Higgins was lying when she alleged Lerman raped her in the office that night, if such a criminal matter was ever of anything more than a passing interest to us at all. Rather, it is about the utter failure of almost every politician involved to abide by basic principles, especially the assumption of innocence and even common sense. While you and I work hard, pay our taxes, raise our kids, and try to stay out of trouble, many of our elected leaders are preoccupied with a sordid game of political point scoring and dodging media beat-ups, of which this story provided many on an almost weekly basis for years. The disconnect between the lives of ordinary Australians and our politicians has never been more apparent. The media and social media are also culpable. The Me Too movement, which was red hot at the time, had made politicians everywhere paranoid about being seen as beholden to the patriarchy. As the text messages sensationally published in the Australian Today reveal, much of what happens in Canberra is less about the well-being of people like you and I, or the nation for that matter, and more about scoring points against political opponents. According to the Australian Labor staffer David Shiraz, who is now Higgins's husband, texted Higgins on February 11, 2021, quote, "Katie," that's Katie Gallagher, who's now a Labor minister in the Labor government, "is going to come to me with some questions you need to prepare for. She's really invested now, ha ha." This was 4 days before Higgins appeared on The Project on Channel 10, which blew the allegations of rape into the open, although Lerman wasn't named at the time. Shiraz added in another text message, "She's an old friend. We opened a chair together, so you can trust her." What follows after that is some toing and froing about who should be the mediator in all this, and Higgins insists that whoever Shiraz is able to convince to get on side should contact her directly. And here is an exchange from a Senate committee 4 months later, as Labor Senator Katie Gallagher grills Liberal Senator Linda Reynolds.
Okay. Are you aware about whether, or have you supported an application to fund any legal expenses for Ms Higgins as part of this matter?
Senator, that is absolutely not a question for me. I can only answer in terms of my own
circumstances. You're not aware of one? You're not aware of it?
Senator Gallagher, I can only answer questions in relation to me.
Yep.
Yes.
Are you aware if the police are investigating your conduct?
I have no exposure to what exactly, and in fact it wouldn't be appropriate for me to understand what the AFP is investigating. I've prepared a statement and I've provided details of that statement to the AFP.
Okay.
And as you know, I can't go into the detail of that.
Are you aware of whether they are investigating the conduct of your office?
Senator Gallagher, as I've said, I wouldn't expect to be briefed on the nature of their investigation, nor would it be appropriate for me to do so.
So, my question about that is, why did you ask DPS for the incident report?
Senator Gallagher, as I've said, you can keep asking me questions in relation to that.
I will.
So, in that case, I have very clear legal advice and advice from the AFP. So, you can ask questions in relation to this, but I will not. As I said in the Senate when I first was asked these questions by Senator Wong and others, I will not prejudice this case.
Well, can we have the legal advice?
Now, whether
or the
you
AFP advice,
now
or
whether
both?
you should ask the AFP Commissioner's advice.
Well,
is on the
he has
public
answered
record.
questions. He has answered questions about this.
Now, as I said, you can ask me those questions, but I am not going to aerate them here publicly today because I do not want to prejudice the case.
Quite the grilling. Things continued to get even more heated until Reynolds said this.
I'm going to go now.
I know where this started.
I'm now going to go to Senator Sheldon and give him the call to return to his questioning.
I beg your pardon?
No, Chair.
Order.
No, Chair. She's just made an imputation on the Hansard. We'd like to understand what she's just said.
You said I know where this started.
I know where this started. What do you mean?
Senator Wong, I really don't think we should be doing this here, but if you want me to do that.
Yes, I think...
I was told by one of your senators 2 weeks before about what you were intending to do with the story in my office, 2 weeks before.
Oh, I had no knowledge of this.
No one had any knowledge.
Okay.
I had no knowledge of this.
How dare you?
Order. Now we will move...
It's all about
we will
protecting yourself.
We may...
The Labor senator to whom Reynolds is referring in that last clip is the late Labor Senator Kimberley Kitching. As Shari Markson reported in The Australian in March last year, soon after this confrontation, Reynolds privately informed Wong and Gallagher that Kitching was the one who had warned her an attack on her, Reynolds, was being planned. Kitching was later ostracised by her colleagues and died of a heart attack, aged 52, in March last year. Markson reported that Kitching and some of her supporters referred to Wong, Gallagher and another Labor senator, Christina Keneally, as the Mean Girls. But it's the claim from Gallagher that, quote, no one had any knowledge, unquote, that is now being scrutinised. The texts from Shiraz, published in The Australian today, suggest that that wasn't quite true. Lerman was eventually charged and tried last year in a court in Canberra, but the case was abandoned because of juror misconduct. ACT prosecutor Shane Drumgold said he wouldn't seek a retrial for fear of affecting Higgins's mental health. And Drumgold himself is now on leave from his job. Higgins received a confidential payout for a personal injury claim against the government in December, which was widely reported to be around $3 million. Senator Reynolds now says the payout should be investigated by the new National Anti-Corruption Commission. Well, I've aired my opinions about the commission before. Who needs it? If the payout to Higgins is in any way corrupt or improper, let the police investigate it and put any potential offenders in the dock. Adding a corruption commission to it simply prolongs what people like you and I want, which is justice to be seen to be done. That's another quaint principle that has been thoroughly discarded in this sorry saga, along with the even more fundamental principle of innocence until proven guilty. I met Bruce Lerman on a couple of occasions earlier this year, and although we didn't become close friends, I was absolutely astonished at the circumstances in which he found himself. He was at the time broke and living a mostly hermit life because at the time he was one of the most hated men in the nation. And he had not been convicted of anything. If that doesn't sadden you, then just wait till something like this happens to you or someone you care about. If recent performances are anything to go by, you won't be able to rely on your local politicians to uphold your legal rights if it in any way jeopardises the politician's image against the forces of wokeness on social media. Your rights are sadly secondary to the rights of the vindictive mobs who roam the angry avenues of social media.